Hello, friends. Welcome to the ATC Double Cut. I am here with a special guest that I think you will all recognize. He's been on the show before, and if you aren't watching this, you'll certainly recognize his voice. It is Joe Gulotti, the well-known host of the Talking Greenkeeper podcast. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be back, and I can't wait to discuss the topic. Bombs. We're talking about bombs again, correct?
That's right. If you're on the show, we've had so much fun talking about the posts on the ATC blog that nobody reads, or relatively nobody reads. And I had a top 10 list or a bottom 10 list, however you want to call that, of which I do every year. I look at all the posts that I make on the blog, and I look at the ones in the previous year that relatively few people read, because I find that interesting, just as interesting as the ones that the most people read. And I thought, let's just keep it up. And when I talk about that, if you're available, I'm going to invite you on the show.
Anytime. I know. I was thrilled when I woke up this morning and I saw the text from you via WhatsApp inviting me on to talk about the 10 least read blog posts of 2022. I was ecstatic, and it was a great way to wake up this morning. So thank you for having me on.
Well, that it's my pleasure. Let's be done with the prelude and jump right to the main event here on the ATC Double Cut, which is the post, which I will put a direct link to in the description. And I give it the title of 10 Posts That No One Read Last Year. It's one that I did in early January because I looked at the page views for all of the blog posts that I made on the blog in 2022. And I look at the ones that relatively few people read. And I don't, why do I do this? I guess I want to give some of them a second chance, and I want to find which ones people just absolutely don't care about. And I just find it interesting. I don't know.
I I was going through the list today, and there were a few that I wasn't even aware of. For example, the one, I think it's number 3 on the list. Which number 3, Micah?
Number 3 is ATC Double Cut listeners by country.
No, it was number 4. 2-week turfgrass tour in Japan. I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
I never saw that one, and I clicked that on as I was waiting to come on this with you.
How
And
awesome
so
was
many
it?
good cart rides. The cart ride, I was watching the cart ride with my boy Quinn Thompson.
Hmm.
Fantastic. Quinn is such a great character. And yeah, I cannot wait. Probably tonight I'm going to just peruse that for sure and go over all those videos, because I did not see them when you posted them. I'm guessing sometime in August or maybe
That
early
would have
September.
probably September. Yeah. So, um, that's one also that I kind of forgot about too, that I had 18 videos from that trip. So some of those videos are about tournament golf, some of them are about interesting things like cutting hole locations in the afternoon in Japan, which is kind of typical. um, it it shows some beautiful lawns. It shows tea plantations, and it's got a bunch of short videos that shows things like an all-female bunker crew at Kea Golf Club for the tournament. It and it's got videos of how I make the measurements of firmness and trueness and green speed and soil moisture content and so on. It's just like a wide range of videos and interviews with people like Benjamin Warren, who's a golf course designer, and who's doing a project in
Benjamin,
Japan.
yeah,
Yeah,
Benjamin Warren
Benjamin.
has been he's been as slippery as Frank Rossi for me to try to get as a guest.
Well, I'm going to encourage you to keep trying because Benjamin Warren is is a well-traveled, busy person who's currently working on a project in Fukuoka, Japan, and I hope to go see that.
I would
I
love
think
to
it's a
have Ben on the show.
yeah, it's I think it's called Classic Golf Club, and they've had some major championships in Japan. recently had the Japan Women's Open, and they have two bent grass greens on that course, and they're changing it to one bent grass green. So Benny is leading that project, and Quinn Thompson is there shaping it
Wow.
with another guy, a shaper from Canada, I believe. And I think Ben runs the machines too, so he's I'm sure they're having a good time out there working together. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. One cool thing, I guess measurement videos would be good because, as you pointed out to me, I was explaining the Bible test all wrong,
yeah,
and I probably should have watched that video, and I would have been able to express, particularly to Jerry Lemons, who is basically created his whole thesis of golf course architecture on the basis of having fair hole locations,
hmm
right? And it probably would have been, and I explained it all wrong to him, and you were kind enough to point it out to me, Micah, that I was explaining the Bible test all wrong, and you broke it down to me. You sent me a couple.
is it kind when people contact you out of the blue and say you've been making a terrible mistake? I encourage you to try to get it right next time. Is that kind?
Well, it is kind if it's you, Micah, but if it was Turf Truth or someone of that ilk, I might be disappointed. I might take it a
Well,
different way. No, but I took it as a total a learning experience, right? I didn't take it personally at all. I was explaining it wrong, and you pointed out
yeah,
to me
it's
that, hey, yeah, you're Joe. This is the way it's going down, and I totally appreciate it. It was awesome. So now I know how to do a Bible test properly.
well, that's good. I on Thursday afternoon I went out to a golf course in the Bangkok area and recorded some videos about the bobble test. So as soon as I
I
have a
saw
chance,
those.
as soon as I have a chance to edit those together, yeah, I
I
think
saw them on Instagram.
yeah, I posted a few little previews on Instagram. I will encourage everybody to watch to the end of that video because we were thinking how should we close this? Like we've recorded everything about the bobble test. How should we close it? And somebody said, "Hey, Michael, why don't you do the birdie dance?" And I thought, okay, so let me make a putt. And naturally, I made the putt on the first attempt and did the birdie dance, a really good one, captured on video, high resolution. Just should be amazing.
I cannot wait. Well, let's hope that doesn't. Let's hope that's not a bomb. Let's hope that's one that people watch
Yeah,
often.
let's hope. So back to this list.
Yeah.
I'm going to start when I wrote it on the blog at asianturfgrass.com. I counted it down from 10 to 1, but I'm going to talk about it now. Just like, let's just get right to the point and say which one was the absolutely least viewed of the year, and we'll count it from 1 down to 10. So number one for fewest views was that key moments are automatically added on videos. That was a blog post where I was somewhat surprised when I checked out my YouTube channel and I saw that the software that YouTube uses is able to find some of the key points in the videos based basically on how people watch it. I am sure, and then they already know what the text is because they're doing voice to text. Basically, they're able to take the audio and convert it to text, and so they know what the text is, they know what the topics are, and they can find the key points in the video, what those topics are, and they make this table of contents. And I thought that was awesome because when you go to YouTube, if you do it like I do, you're often doing it looking for information, looking for information about how somebody aerifies. You know, like there's some classic videos that show people how they do organic matter management or something, how they aerify, how they top dress. Or yesterday I was looking for some stuff specific to a particular programming language, how to do a particular thing with one programming language in a different type of software. And it's really useful when there's chapters or table of contents on those videos so you can get right to the point. And I was so pleased that especially some of those ATC office hour videos that I do that are sometimes up to 2 hours or 2.5 hours long, that are long conversations with people about turfgrass, that those table of contents can automatically be added, and it jumps right to, well, what about fertilizing bunker banks, or what about sand top dressing amounts, or what about tissue testing, or so on. And those are the key points in the videos. So that one, no, had the fewest clicks.
Okay, well, I have a question about that. Didn't you post that recently? Wasn't that
Um,
posted in December? I
maybe,
I want to
maybe.
say that that
It
was
was definitely
posted
in the autumn.
recently
It was definitely
because I
early,
think I
early
remember
December.
looking at. Yeah, I
Early
think I
December.
remember. Yeah, I think I just remember seeing that recently.
Hmm.
So perhaps maybe that's why it was number one. But no, I think it's a good tool to have on YouTube because yeah, if I want to say recently you had the one with Rock Guas, I can never say his name right, Rock Guasan, and you want to get to the part, a certain part of that video with Rock, or perhaps one with Chris Trinidad, you can just go to the table of contents and you don't have to frantically use the bar where you fast forward through the video and try to pinpoint where it is, and then you're getting ad pop-ups, and it becomes very frustrating. So I think this would be a really rad tool to have and to use on YouTube, and I'm definitely going to take advantage of this feature on YouTube from now on. I had no idea it existed until I saw this blog post.
So this one you did see.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, but I didn't see. I felt like I didn't see it until later. I felt
Yeah. It was
like
it was
maybe
it
this
was
was one that I saw maybe while procrastinating at my in-laws' house in Cincinnati over Christmas, right? And just clicked on it while I was sitting there on a, the day after Christmas maybe, and we're just waiting to go do something, and I'm procrastinating on Twitter, and you come up into my feed, and key moments automatically added on videos. Oh, let me click this. And yeah,
nice.
I feel like that's when I saw it. So maybe that's why it was the least viewed or least read
I've
in
got a question
2020.
for you about your Twitter use.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you do chronological tweets, or do you let Twitter decide what you're going to see?
I, great question. I let Twitter decide what I'm going to see.
So there are a surprising number of people that do that, which it just astounds me, because I'm not really interested in seeing stuff. I don't want to see stuff from people I don't follow generally, unless somebody that I do follow retweets it, because I already decide who I want to see stuff from, and I would rather see all of it in chronological order. So definitely, if I get a lot of clicks to my website through Twitter, and if there's a lot of people using Twitter and allowing Twitter to control what they see, then if I have a post that doesn't have a lot of likes or retweets initially, then it just kind of dies and nobody sees it, because you're essentially electing to say, I don't really care if I see everything from Micah or not. If you use the home what is it, top tweets or something? I mean,
I
it's
don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Is there a way that you can go into the settings and change that? And to see them I mean, I believe I'm getting them in chronological order, but there are times when I wake up and I'll get a tweet from, say, Guy Cipriano. Is that how you say his name, from GCI magazine? Is it Cipriano? I'm not sure if it's
I
a
I say
soft ch or a hard s. I don't
you should
know.
have him. You should have him on the show. But yeah, I say Cipriano.
Okay.
You,
So for
you don't follow
example,
him?
Mike, I'm sorry.
You don't follow him?
Oh, I follow him. Yeah, of course I follow him. But
Yeah.
what it'll it'll be right at the beginning of my feed, but
Mm-hmm.
the tweet will have happened 20 hours ago, so it's not the tweet.
Okay. So I picked up my telephone
Uh-huh.
and I'm running Android, and at the top right of my timeline, I can click on a little star type of thing, and it says your timeline shows the latest tweets.
Okay,
And
so okay. Yep, your timeline is set to home.
yep,
Switch to late. Okay, so if I
you
switch to late tweets, it's going to go in chronological order.
of the people that you follow.
So I could get the latest Flecky pics, right? I might be missing Flecky pics. I might be missing Francis McDormand's did I say his name right?
I,
Dan Francis. Why do I call him? Because
Francis D. Marion or something.
yeah, Francis. It's like yeah, the actress. Whatever. Yeah, Dan Francis. So I can get all these Twitter stars in chronological order. Hold on. Okay, so I cannot wait. Okay, I'm gonna switch it up, Micah. Switch to
So
latest tweets.
yes,
Okay, here we
that's
go. And I just got Tron Carter's latest tweet. Do you want to hear Carter's latest tweet?
not really,
All right, cool. We won't need to hear it. It
but
seemed pretty boring.
But yeah, maybe you'll switch back to home, but I certainly do it in chronological order because that's how I use Twitter. That's what I use it for, and I'm not really I don't want to see random stuff. Um, so,
You don't want to
but
see things that I like. You know how that's a feature too.
I don't even
I
know who
had to.
Tron Carter is. I really could care less.
I think he's a golf writer, I believe, or something. He's maybe no laying up. I think I don't know. I'm probably getting this all wrong,
I don't
but
know.
yeah, I because I've had to stop I've stopped following people, right? Because my my feed was getting clogged up with their likes. It would be like so and so like this, and it would be something just really not really anything pertaining to turf grass or greenkeeping or turf
Yeah,
grass management.
I don't know. Apparently, there's a lot of people like you out there that allow that. But I think I would quit using Twitter if I couldn't see it in chronological order. Because
But the most important, the people that I like, you still pop up.
yeah, but I won't
You're
pop up. I won't pop up. You won't see all my tweets. I don't think in that because they'll definitely take ones that nobody really interacts with,
uh
and
huh.
they will down rank it. So then it's shown to fewer people, which you see in the view count, which they started making public on other people's tweets also. But I could see that before with my own tweets that, like, I have 7,000 and some followers, but some tweets will just get like 800 views or something. 800.
Yeah.
And so a tweet like that, if it only gets like 800 views, Twitter can tell that a lot of people are not very interested in it, and they don't push it to people who have their timeline set up for home. So for somebody who has their Twitter set up the way you did, where it's set to home, then they just won't bother pushing the non-interesting tweets. And so then you get things
Gotcha.
like key moments automatically added on videos, which is sort of like a housekeeping type of thing. And that also just leads to fewer people seeing it. So on to the next one because we've got a lot of unviewed blog posts to discuss
Yeah. Let's
here,
go.
and that is, do more people watch or listen to this show, to the ATC Double Cut? And that's one that somebody asked me. I forget who asked me. Maybe it was you. I
Could have
think
been.
I think maybe it was somebody else. I just remember at the right now. And so I looked it up because I can look up the episodes stats from the podcast host, and I could look it up on YouTube. And initially it was about even, but as the year went on, and I did this post I think in September, so in like July, August, September, it was definitely, there were about twice as many people listening to it as watching it. So that is interesting to me, and was actually good for me to know. I totally understand why people don't click on the blog post, because that's something that's more like a something that's interesting to me, but maybe it's not interesting to the general public. But the
I
reason why it's
yeah.
interesting to me is because now I know if more people are listening to this show, I can certainly gear it more towards what it might be like as a listening experience, instead of saying, okay, now let's look at this video and let's look at this and let's look at that. And it's more like telling stories or something.
Yeah, I am more. In all honesty, I listen more than I watch, but I like watching because particularly the office hours when you show your graphs and show graphics along with the interview. I think it's really important to see that, right? And it's when you're doing it as a YouTube live, or there's just something about watching it that's just getting more information. But again, and we've had this conversation before, that people's time are important, and what they're going to choose to listen to, what they're going to choose to read, what they're going to choose to watch on TV is very important. So I can digest your material a lot more easily when I'm out on the golf course doing my greenkeeping chores with my earbuds in than I can just sitting in my office. But I will, on a lunch break, sit in my office. I'll close the door. I'll turn off the lights, which my coworkers all bust on me for. They don't understand why I like a dark office during lunch. It just is very relaxing to me, and I'll just turn on some Micah Woods. I'll go to the ATC channel and watch some videos and just hang out with you for my 45-minute lunch period. And it's awesome.
That's awesome. I I uh, I think there's more and more interesting stuff there. So you can find a lot of things that you might be interested in, like OM246 or MLSN or bobble test videos or whatever, or interviews with people, or just me talking about irrigation or something. That's You can find it there.
I've learned so much how long have you been doing this, Mike? It's been a year, right?
What the? Yeah, I
About a year, right? You debuted with Chris Chertoba. Was that the office hours? The
Yeah,
first
that
one? You
was
did a couple.
November 2021.
Yeah, yeah. So a little over a year you've been doing it, and I've learned so much. It's been just a fantastic additive to my learning and just my entertainment. It's been really cool. I've had lunch with you, even though you're not in the office with me. Uh, Personally, sitting right there, I've had a lot of lunches with you. Lunches with Micah, plenty of
Cool.
lunches with Micah, watching YouTube and yeah, and you've kept me company out on the golf course, so it's been awesome.
Cool. Well, I am glad to be able to do that. And that is a nice uh, segue into the third least viewed blog post, which is also a bit of a housekeeping of personal interest to Micah. Insider analytics for my company, or whatever. It's ATC Double Cut listeners by country, which looks at where the podcast listeners were listening from. And yeah, that is the. Let's see if I can bring that up. Can you see that? Is it
Yeah,
showing the
absolutely.
double cut
Global
listeners
listen.
by country?
Yeah, yeah.
So I got notified by my podcast host, Transistor, which, by the way, a lot of people are starting podcasts or thinking about starting podcasts. If you want to start a podcast, I really enjoy Transistor as a podcast host. They've been terrific. So if you're looking for who to pay to host your content, Transistor has been really good for me. Anyway,
Can I ask you a quick question about your transistor?
yeah.
Now, how is their customer service? Meaning, if you have a problem, are you able to call them, or do you have to email them a ticket and then somebody gets back to you?
Well, I've been so pleased with them. In 15 months or so
Mm.
of being a customer, I have had to file zero tickets and zero service requests. I've had
Gotcha.
no problems, and that's with two shows. That's with both the ATC Double Cut and with ATC Office Hours, which are two different shows. So,
Okay, okay. I use Libsyn,
mhm.
Libsyn, and they've been really good.
Yes, they. I think they may be the market leader. They are pretty big. Um,
Yeah, yeah. They've been fine. I've had the only weird thing is and it's so how can I put this? It's when you have a problem, right? You feel like you're the only person in the world that should be taken care of right now, and sometimes you lose you just lose sight of that, and that hey, you're one of millions that are having a problem. It's just not you, and it just becomes so personal, and I get so anxious about it. For example, Jeff LaCour. Do you remember that episode with Jeff LaCour? It was last year in March sometime, and I had just switched. I just used my new artwork. It was the first episode I did the new artwork, and it wasn't posting on Apple because Apple had this weird. They have this weird way that your artwork has to be perfect. It has to be perfectly sized or
mhm.
whatever, or they won't post it. And I was having problems and issues with it, and it just made me so nervous, right? It just because Apple is people listen to my podcast most through Apple, and yeah, it just wasn't out, and it just made me nervous. And I would have loved to have just gotten on the phone with Libsyn and talked it through with somebody, but instead I had to do it via email, which was kind of annoying. But we fixed the problem.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, and I was telling, or I noticed that it was updated on Spotify where I listened to your show, The Talking Greenkeeper,
Yeah,
and I think you told me, but it wasn't on Apple, which is really what matters for you.
yeah. I mean, it does. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's fine. It got all worked out, but yeah, I don't know. I just get all weird and anxious about it. I like that human interaction when I have a problem. I would love to just talk to. But anyway, let's talk about this. Countries with the most downloads of the ATC double cut with Michael Woods. Let's talk about this, Micah.
And this was from April 1st to August 15th of 2022. So that was the time period I looked at, and it was five English speaking countries to top the list. Number one was the United States, then the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and Ireland, number five. And then the next four were all countries where English is a second language: Denmark, Spain, Germany, Sweden, and then New Zealand, number 10. So it's definitely a global, right? We've got Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and North America, and Australia, and Europe, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's people all over the world that listen to the show, but just like in a place like Vietnam, you'll get like one or two people listen to each episode, and in places like the United States, it might be 100 or something like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, the next part is per capita, right?
Yeah, Bjarni from Iceland. I think people from Iceland often say, "Well, what about a per capita basis?" Because the country population is 180,000 people or something. So on a per capita basis, Iceland was number two. Monaco was number one. Iceland number two. Ireland number three. So some of these countries made both lists. Like Ireland, Denmark, New Zealand, Australia, United Kingdom, and Canada were on both lists. And then some places like Slovenia, Saint Lucia, and Iceland and Monaco were new. They made it on the per capita list. So
No, that's
I
cool. I think I was number one golf podcast in Iceland for a hot minute. You know, not to go oxymoron, hot
Wow.
minute night, right?
Well,
But
congratulations.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I remember getting an email saying you're number one in golf podcasts in Iceland, and I remember thinking to myself, that is really quite the accomplishment. I was pretty stoked.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's it's good. It's nice to see those stats.
yeah. It is nice.
So I know we're both podcast hosts or content creators or whatever we want to call that,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that you feel the same way that I do. That it's very flattering that people from around the world take their very valuable time to spend some of it listening to what we have to say or to listen what we're talking about. So I will express my thanks to anybody who's listening right now. Thank you, and I will give you the opportunity to do the same if you have the same type of feelings.
Micah, I couldn't have said it any better, so I'll just do the quotation marks underneath what you just said, and that's exactly how I feel. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Awesome. Now that I realize how I can share the screen, I'm gonna bring up that list of the 2 week tour in Japan because we're now up to number 4, and now we start. So the bottom three, the three blog posts that nobody watched, nobody clicked on, nobody viewed, were really, let's call them housekeeping issues for me and things that I'm just looking at my own stats, things that obviously would be interesting to me, but I can very much understand why people might not care whether more people watch or listen to this show. Um, now, now we start moving into things that I think some people might have missed the first time around or they might be interested in, and that's like the 2 week turfgrass tour in Japan. And this is now showing on the screen for those of you watching it. And I will scroll down. I started off with this post saying, I was in Japan for 2 weeks to work at the KBC Augusta tournament, have meetings, and visit turfgrass sites. On this trip, I made a deliberate effort to record some videos to show a few things that I find interesting about turfgrass management in Japan. And it turned out that there were 18 videos and they're on such a wide range of topics. And I listed them, I put direct links to them. And these include tools that I use to measure surface performance and the growing environment of golf course putting greens. And there's pre-tournament visits to Andrew McDaniel at Kea Golf Club before the KBC Augusta tournament and one after the KBC Augusta tournament. We've got just, yeah, it's about food in Japan, non-alcohol beer in Japan, about the source material for golf course architecture, which Benjamin Warren says is the links of Scotland. It's about soft ice cream, bullet trains. It's so many things, and there were just a lot of videos that I did, and so there's a list of all of them there, and I think these are some of the most interesting videos of the year, because I think that golf in Japan is something that a lot of people don't get to see. Yeah, a lot of people haven't even been to Japan, and if people do go to Japan, they rarely go and see the golf courses that are out in the countryside, out of the city centers. It's people go to Kyoto and see the temples, or they go to Niseko and ski. And also Benjamin Warren and I talked about that in the video with Benjamin Warren. He lets us know that the best lift accessible powder in the world is in Hokkaido. So yeah, we talk about a wide range of things.
Yeah, I got to get on this one. I did not see this one come up in my feed nor in my email, or I did, and I just perhaps 9, 10. I'm looking at the date. Stevie's probably first week back to school. Rory's back to school. It's really our first week of just hectic school, getting back into the rhythm of Roy and Stevie being off all summer. So perhaps I just overlooked it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm busy at work. September is a really busy month of work at in the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States, and Yeah, I may have just overlooked this one, but this is one I definitely am going to be having. I'm going to be having some lunch with Micah this week,
Yeah,
checking out this site,
I
checking
was
out this blog post.
I was thinking that in the winter, I can understand when I did this in August and early September for people in the northern hemisphere, it's hard to sit down and watch YouTube videos if you're in the golf course maintenance business. That's not a high priority thing to do. But if people have a little bit more time in January now, or in the next few months, maybe check out some of these because I think it's yeah, some of these are interesting.
Absolutely, I'm a sucker for soft ice cream. Sucker for soft ice cream. One of our favorite things to do, Micah, my wife and I, is if it's a hot, sort of steamy, humid night in July, we like to go to McDonald's and get a cone. It's like $1.29 for a
Oh,
cone of
you
vanilla ice
you got to
cream.
come to Thailand. They're about 33 cents
33
at
cents.
McDonald's. At McDonald's, yeah, it's
Yeah,
10 baht.
yeah. And there's just something about that ice cream, that soft serve ice cream. They have the Rita's water ice here, which is, have you ever had a water ice, Micah?
Is it a snow cone or a
Different.
shaved ice? If it's in Hawaii, you call it shaved ice, and you shave the ice and then you put some syrup over it.
See, this is Italian water ice. So Italian water ice is made with the fruit. Usually it's lemon.
Oh,
Lemon
oh,
is the one that they usually make it with. It's a lemon
okay.
water ice, and it's made with real lemon juice. And you'll get the actual shavings of the lemon peel in the water ice itself that just make it bang with flavor. But there's this place, Rita's Water Ice, that has mango. It has all the flavors that are awesome, but they have a killer soft serve, and they have what is called, which I've been busted on so long. They have a gelati, right?
Uh huh.
Or gelato, a
Uh
gelato.
huh.
My fault. Which is soft serve ice cream and water ice mixed together, and
Oh wow.
it's insanely good. It's insanely good because you get to the top, it's the soft serve, and then you get into the water ice part, and then the water ice gets mixed with the soft serve ice cream, and it's just just a really cool food experience.
That's
So
nice.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to put a plug in for soft cream in Japan, which I think is my favorite. And the reason why it's my favorite is because of the regional flavors. And in Japan, there are there's a relatively high population and a relatively small land area, and it's a very rugged country. And so the places you may have this city that's over a mountain range or through a tunnel, to get there, and it has a slightly different climate, and there may be a particular citrus that grows there. Like in Oita, there's a citrus called kabosu, and I just had a gift of it, and I was trying to explain to my wife what it is, and she's like, "Where's that from? What is it again? What is it again?" But because I am so lucky to get to travel around all over Japan to visit golf courses and study turf grass, I often get to see these regional places and the regional food. And, this place has this kind of crab, this other place has that kind of crab. They don't use that weird kind of seasoning that I tasted in those Ott's potato,
Oh,
old
right,
bay
right.
seasoning.
The Old
In
Bay.
Yeah, in Japan, it's more just going to be like, let's just taste the crab. Um,
I
but
gotcha. I know. Which I like too. And that's a crab cake sandwich. You're gonna just taste the crab.
mhm,
You're not gonna get the overpower. The Old Bay is for the steamed crab. That's such an Eastern Shore Maryland thing, right? And
mhm,
they put it on a potato chip, Old Bay, and people freak out on Old Bay in this region of the United
mhm.
States. And there are shirts that say I put Old Bay on my Old Bay, and you can get Old Bay wings, and it's just a unique taste. It's a unique
I'm gonna
flavor.
I'm going to explore that one a little bit further because there's more for me to
Mm.
understand about it. But
Yeah, yeah.
back.
Well, I don't think people know that backstory because we didn't. Did we talk about? I think we talked about it after we had our podcast together, which unfortunately was not done in live like we had wanted to in person.
Yeah, I
Unfortunately,
was actually I was actually in Maryland, and
yeah,
you're in Delaware, kind of the heart of everywhere, and you're not very far from anywhere. And so
it's
I
a
said,
geographical oddity. It's
yeah, because
basically 2 hours from everywhere. Yeah,
yeah, and like we're 12 time zones away right now, but if you get on an
yeah.
airplane, it takes more than 12 hours to get here. So when I'm in Maryland, I think, well, you're pretty close. Maybe we could meet up, and we
Oh
were planning
man.
that, and then you got COVID, I think, which was the reason we couldn't do it. And
Yeah, that was. It was it was yeah, unfortunately I did get the COVIDs and but yeah, and then after we finished our conversation, I said you got to check it cuz I know that you're a potato chip connoisseur.
mhm.
You love to write about the different flavors of potato chips that you find and I said, "Hey, listen, there's this potato chip that you're definitely going to find in Maryland. It's going to be the Utz crab chip and it's Old Bay basically." Yeah, you
And
weren't too. You didn't think it was that good though.
uh, yeah, I gave the rest of the bag away.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a
I
weird
tried
like
it.
I
It
yeah
didn't taste like crab. It tasted like seasoning, and I didn't
yeah
find the
Old Bay.
seasoning, and I didn't find the seasoning that exciting. But I don't have a history of associating that flavor with anything. So I'm sure if I
Yeah,
went to Eastern Maryland and had some crabs and a nice ambience there, and have that seasoning, then I could appreciate it. And that's what I'm saying when I need to explore that further. Maybe next time I'll come visit you in the summer and we'll go down to Maryland or something.
yeah, and eat some crabs. It's really not a meal that's you eat to get full. It's the social aspect of eating crabs. It's the picking apart and just going through the whole crab itself and the whole process of it, which is cool. And you get that big back fin, right? And you're like, oh, check this out. And you get the back fin, you dip it in the butter, and it's just I don't know. It's the whole thing. It's pretty awesome.
Well, nice. So back to
Yeah.
Japan and the soft
Yes. Back to
cream.
Japan.
So I was recently in Japan and I had a couple of soft creams. One was a McDonald's soft cream,
Which is
and
so good, so good, right?
that was very good. And the other one on
Yeah.
uh, in Chiba Prefecture, which grows a lot of peanuts, and I was formerly a golf course superintendent in Chiba, and I have fond memories of being 23, 24 years old, working in Chiba, and that
Chiba,
prefecture,
Chiba.
Chiba, that prefecture is famous for many things, including peanut production. So I am always looking for peanut soft cream when I'm in Chiba, and on the way to Narita Airport when I was leaving Japan 10 days ago or something, we found a superb peanut soft cream, and I ordered it. So
Awesome.
that's for
I
me
know
is in
Japan to me, Micah, is one of these places. The way you talk about Hokkaido, and then talking to one of my more recent episodes with Dr. Richard Hurley, whom I really enjoyed talking to. He's been to Hokkaido, and I brought up that that's your favorite place to golf, and he told, yeah, 007. There you go, 007.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
so
I'm
I don't
I'm
know.
wearing my 007 shirt. I do consulting for Royal Turf Company. I've been a longtime advisor for that company, and they are the importer of 007 and 777 seeds to Japan, and those seeds are widely used around Japan, which is part of the reason why I get to travel to so many different places to see test plots of those grasses and see superintendents who are using them with great success.
Awesome. Well, I think number 4 on the list should be off the list of top 10, and people should start hitting up that blog.
Oh,
And particularly greenkeepers that are watching this, listening to this on the East Coast. Come on, man. You know how winters are chill. Just, yeah. Don't go to stupid Instagram and watch Instagram reels. Watch Micah Wood's 2-week turf grass tour in Japan. It'd be much more informative.
Awesome. And now let's move on to number 5, which
Oh, here we are. Here we
the
are.
talk the Talking Greenkeeper season 5 episode 1 reviews the instant classic episode of this show when Dr. Frank Rossi finally made an appearance. Now, that uh, when there is a podcast episode or another somebody else's blog post or article or video that I think is really interesting and well worth watching or listening to or reading, I'll often do a blog post about it. And I so enjoyed that episode that I did a blog post about it, but that made my list of ones that people didn't click on. So I know a lot of people listen to that, but they listen to it through Apple Podcasts, through
Spotify.
Spotify or
Yeah.
whatever, and so they're not gonna. They would have already seen it, and so they're just like, "Oh, Micah thinks that's interesting," but they're not going to actually click through and read about it on my blog. But it's nice that you could make this list.
Well, thank you. I was very I was very when this actual blog came out, the 10 least read blogs of 2022, and I saw that at number 5, I had a laugh. I thought it was very good, and I was very stoked to make this list. It seemed very appropriate because I've been on podcasts with you where we talk about your blogs that don't do so well, so it just seemed appropriate, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it was as soon as that came on, I was like, okay, definitely Joe and I are gonna have to talk about this. But yeah, I'm actually glad it's at number 5 instead of number 1 because it would be a little bit embarrassing for me to have to say, Joe, when I was writing about you, that was the one post of the year out of all the bad ones that I did, the absolute worst, the one that nobody cares about is you. And I'm so glad that I don't have to say that.
it's not. You're so glad it didn't. I think it would have been great if it came in number 1. Let's hope next year. Yeah, we got to get one that goes to number 1. So
That
if
would
you
be
ever see this one, don't click on it. We need to get it to number 1.
that would be embarrassing for both of us.
I know.
So,
Well, here's the
but
thing. I don't think.
congratulations, by the way, for getting Frank on. And oh, we can tell a
But
little bit of a backstory on that too.
yeah, go ahead because I don't think people realize how influential you were for finally getting him on the
Well,
podcast.
I, and Dr. Rossi is very busy. And when you get to that stage in your career and you're so well known and well respected around the world, you have a lot of demands on your time and a lot of obligations, and then you have family that you have to have your time for family and your time for your real job and your time for you know you just run out of time to do things. So it's quite difficult for Frank to even agree to come on the show. And you had told me, like, okay, I'm scheduled. I finally got Frank because I kept encouraging Frank. It would be really interesting to hear you instead of being a host of the Frankly Speaking podcast, which is one that I listen to pretty much every episode. And I haven't found that on Spotify, which I'm just like, come on, TurfNet. I think they put it on. If it somebody correct me
It's
if
not
I'm
on
wrong.
Spotify?
I don't think so. They
Here,
it's
I'm gonna
on
check that right
it's on
now.
iTunes, but I haven't found it on Spotify. So it's a bit of a hassle for me to listen to it because I have to download the episodes and and then transfer it to my phone, and then I listen to it manually. But
Wow, it's not. Hold on. Okay, so frankly speaking, it did not come up. Let me go TurfNet Radio.
yeah,
Oh,
it
hold on.
yeah. So I don't. I'll let you search for that. I don't think it's on Spotify, which
It's not. It's not. It is not. TurfNet Radio is not on. So you can't get Earthworks. You can't get Randy Booker. Who's the other fella that loves? I think Bradley Klein has a renovation report or something. Or yeah, So you're not getting any of that on Spotify. Yeah, come on, Peter McCormick, you gotta step up your game, son.
yeah,
Right?
I think yeah maybe they will do it. Maybe they can put
Yeah.
it. I mean it's pretty easy to put onto a lot of platforms. I don't. mention all the platforms that I'm on, but I'm on. I mean, if you want, you can listen to this on Amazon and on Google Podcasts
Yeah,
and pretty much anything,
Podbean.
because
Yeah.
I try to make it as easy as possible for the listeners. But anyway, so
Yeah.
Frank is quite busy, and I
He
go to
is.
the and it is quite complicated for me to actually even be able to listen to them. But I go to the trouble of doing it because I find it worth listening to, and I thought it would be interesting to hear him as a guest. And so you told me that you finally had Frank, and then you messaged me, and you're like he he stiffed me, or he
He
I
ghosted
forget the
me or
word.
something. He's
It,
like, he bailed.
something. It's like
Yeah.
because he had to reschedule. And I said, man, I was his graduate student. I this happens, that this happens, and he
Oh, I
doesn't
was
mean,
fired up, man. I
yeah.
was
And I'm
fired
like,
up.
just chill
We
out.
talked. We talked on the phone.
And I'm like, yeah, yeah, you called me, and I'm like, chill out.
Like,
He
dude, I was
he
like, what the fuck, dude?
you
You
know,
fucking
he's
bailed.
I'm like, yeah, you said like he bailed or something. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
he will come on the show. And yeah, he eventually he did, and that was a
He
very
did.
good episode, and I was so glad
I
to
forget what
listen
did
to it.
I do? I forget. I can't even remember what I did. Isn't that funny how mad and how weird we get as humans and we can't even remember what because yeah, I took the day off. I took a vacation day. I think that's why I was so mad because I had to use one of my vacation days, right? To go out of my way and schedule this recording with him and he just totally but I think you know what we did? We did it Saturday after. I think we did it just like a couple days after. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
totally it all worked out. It all worked out. But yeah, I was
Well,
you
the
know
same thing happened to me. Remember the
yeah, he
ATC
bailed on
office
the
hours in
Rockwell song.
December with Rock, and then Frank got the
Yeah.
flu, and he, excuse me, Frank got the flu, and he said he couldn't, he couldn't join. And it's like, yeah,
Hey,
I
well
mean,
listen,
what can you
Michael
do?
Jordan had the best game of his life with the flu. He could have stepped up his game there.
Yeah, I just
I'm
kind of
just kidding.
I just kind of expect it, like
Yeah.
for busy people, they,
He had the
but
Christmas flu, Micah. He had the Christmas flu, dude.
but
He
you know
did,
the.
he,
Uh,
he had to go to the Ithaca Mall and do some Christmas shopping.
I had a friend of mine say that he really enjoys watching my YouTube and listening to the double cut and so on, and then he put an additional clause on that and said especially when Micah has guests on, and
Oh, that's cool. I know.
it's like, oh, nice, nice. So you I understand. Maybe it's more interesting to listen to me have conversations instead of listening to me do a monologue. But as a podcast host, and I think it's even more difficult for me being in the time zone and with the travel. I mean, I'm home today recording. This is the first time I've been here. I got home 15 hours ago, and I've been. I was here one night in November, and a little bit like 4 nights in October or something. That's like when I'm traveling, and also just with my time zone, it's quite difficult for me to do anything with guests. And so if I'm going to do a show, it's like, yeah, basically it's just going to be a lot of monologues.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that's when you texted me this morning. I didn't want to hem and haw with figuring out a date. I said, "Listen, I'm good to go tonight, which is tomorrow morning for you." And I just said to myself, "Let's just do it, right? Let's
Yeah,
not hem and
that's the
haw. Let's
easiest.
not."
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
easiest way to do it, because
totally.
because you sometimes you have mentioned to me that it can be difficult. You spend a lot of time scheduling guests, and then
Yeah,
you have to have the day off work, or you have to take, you
right.
say, you have to skip dinner with your family, or whatever. You have to, you have to block the
Yeah,
time, and like if yeah, it can be quite a hassle to be able to arrange guests, and then if the guests back out at the last minute and say they need to reschedule, you're just like, what?
I
I've
know.
arranged my entire schedule around your schedule, the guest, and then when the guest changes it, you're just like, no, I can't reschedule. I can't.
That's when I pick up the phone and call you and bitch about it.
All right. Well,
Yeah, but one thing about that, it is one of the things, and when you're running a podcast and you're trying to find guests, and it can be it can be it can be hectic. It can be kind of stressful, and there are people that I want to talk to on your side of the world, Micah, and I have my list. I'm going through my list right now, and I'm pretty much booked from January to February. Couple people, one person booked in March, two people booked in March, but I
wow.
there are people that I want to that I want to talk to on your side of the world, and I just have to wait until I get my weekend schedule for the 2023 season, so that way I'll have my SDRs, my standard day of rest, the week
Hmm.
before my weekend, and that's when I'll be able to schedule people on your side of the world where I can wake up at 7 a.m. And it's 7 p.m. their time. So
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely want to talk to people. Like, I'm fascinated. I want to talk to people in Australia. I want to talk. Grant Saunders. That was awesome.
Hmm.
But booking guests like that is challenging.
Yeah. And so for me, because there's a lot of people I'd like to speak with in Europe or the United States or Canada, but the time zone, when I'm in Asia, sometimes the time zone doesn't work. And it's like I've got a call coming up later this month, and they requested it's not a podcast call, it's a different kind of call, but the requested time worked out to be in my time zone. The earliest start time they wanted was 11 p.m. for my time, and they want to finish by 3 a.m. And it's just like, that's
Wow.
not really my, normally I'm early to bed, early to rise, but I don't I don't stay up till 11, and I don't wake at 2. It's more like I sleep at 8 and wake at 4 or something. So it's like, yeah, this is a work project. I will arrange my schedule for it. But
Yeah,
if I
absolutely.
was trying to do a podcast with regular guests, and every time that I had time to do, I would have to put myself on a different time zone, which just doesn't work. Which is, anyway, a long, long
Yeah,
story.
no,
And
no, I know, but yeah, that was funny the day that Dr. Rossi bailed on me. I was very just put off, and I called you, and you were able to talk me off the ledge. And
yeah, I didn't
lo and
think
behold, we had a great episode that led to a blog post by you that
that
turned
made
out to be
this.
number 5 on the list.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't listened to that, I've had other people contact me, because they know that I was Frank Rossi's graduate student, and they know that I have a good relationship with Dr. Rossi, and they said, and so they've just told me that they really enjoyed that episode, and they said they'd even written to Frank or called Frank to tell him that they were so glad that he agreed to be a guest on your show, because they thought that was very interesting to hear that that conversation. So well done.
Well, thank you for hooking that up, because I don't think that happens without you putting the full court press on them.
Well, good. Let's who's next? Who
Uh, anyway,
I think
number
we should get
6.
I think we should get Benny. Okay, number 6.
Yeah, Ben. We got to start hitting Ben up. Ben needs to come on now, Ben.
Yeah.
I feel
So
like yeah.
so another the number 6 is Turfgrass on a Spanish tour. That one is just announcing some seminars that I was doing in Spain, and I tell a story about my first trip to Spain. But I can understand that maybe people are not so interested in that. You know what people are interested in is things that give them solutions or answers, um, um, and more like, here's how to solve this problem. That's actually what Pace Turf does. So if I was going to run an advertisement on this show, I should say check out paceturf.org, which is
Oh, that was
practical advice
slick.
and decision support tools. Because if you look at the top 10 posts, it's all about things like MLSN, how to do fertilizer,
Yeah.
OM246, how to adjust your sand top dressing, how to use temperature, site specific temperature and growth potential to get a starting point estimate for how much sand to put. And that's all things that you can find on Pace Turf, which Asian turf grass is more about like what Micah is interested in, and some of that is turf tourism stuff and whatever. But Pace Turf is just all about useful information. So I'll use that chance to point out it doesn't surprise me that people aren't interested about turf grass on a Spanish tour and my story about my first trip to Spain, but if you are interested in the kind of things that a lot of people are, check out paceturf.org.
Absolutely. Well, I remember the turf grass on a Spanish tour. I immediately clicked on that because, as anybody, the past 2 times I've been on, I've expressed my love of travel and living vicariously through you, Mike, and the places that you go. So I always, that's an interest to me. So please keep writing them. Just at least I'm clicking on them, and I'm going to enjoy them. So yeah, just I'll read them, Micah. It's cool.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, and
Thank
pace turf too. Ripping pace turf. Love pace turf.
Yeah, there's a lot of free information there, a lot of free information resources, and then
The
you can
weather appraisal form in itself is just worth it just to go there, just to do your weather appraisal form, right?
well, you got to pay $275 to get the full deal. The $275 is an annual subscription, so you get so much information for that, including a site-specific climate appraisal. But you can download a spreadsheet called a climate appraisal form, and you can
Climate appraisal. Okay, yeah,
and you
gotcha,
can get some information there. That is part of the free aspect of PaySturf's information service. So anyway, check
gotcha,
it out.
gotcha.
We've been actually getting quite a few new subscribers. You know, kind of. I think people move into the 2023 budget year or something, and they say, yeah, they want to go ahead and either renew their subscription or become a new subscriber. So I'm quite excited about that. And
Yeah, that's a
the
deal. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna hit up the powers that be at DuPont Country Club and see if we can't make that happen, Micah.
wonderful. I appreciate that, and I I yeah, I have always used Pace Turf as an information resource, and Pace Turf has a lot of information about pest control and weeds and diseases and insects that are things that I don't really focus on the Asian turfgrass website. And there's just a lot of useful reference information that's available to subscribers of Pace Turf. So I'm going to keep
Awesome.
mentioning that because I do think it's an incredible value.
I agree.
Number 7 is also a turf tourism one. It is mowing patterns in tea fields, which considers some different ways of making stripes on grass and tea. I was in Kagoshima, Japan, in a tea production area, and I saw that the way the machines harvest the tea puts actual stripes on the tea plants. I thought that was interesting, and I made a blog post about it, and I cared.
I loved it because I had no idea that they did mowing patterns in tea fields, and then at the end you throw in the soccer pitch or the football pitch in Thailand and how they did it,
That's
which
crazy,
was
isn't it?
yeah, right. They did it by just lowering the height of cut, and it's
Yeah.
just like,
So, it,
huh.
yeah. So this is a good one.
Yeah,
If
fascinating, and just whoa.
this
What?
is this is good for your home lawn people out there. If you want to put stripes and you can't quite figure it out, if you scalp the grass, it turns a little bit yellow. So
It'll
you just
stripe it.
you so you set two different mowing heights. You scalp it a little bit to show some of the stems. Cut more of the green leaves off. That's your light stripe, and then you cut it the proper mowing height, and you have it green. And that because there's more leaf tissue on there, and you don't see the stem so much. So that's your dark stripe. And that's I've heard about that on cricket in India. A friend of mine who went to India saw that, and he's like, it's just like you can't believe it that people actually are doing that. And then I saw it
Okay,
for
so is it
myself.
because they don't have rollers and they're cutting with maybe perhaps rotary mowers
No,
or
it's lack of understanding of how the stripes are developed by people that just have no turfgrass education. And so this was,
Interesting.
yeah. So you can imagine if somebody's, yeah, if somebody's just thrown into the job, they know what
Right.
they know what it's supposed to look like, but they don't know how it happens. And they, for a complete novice, they might just assume that it's a different mowing height or something, and they don't
Did you
realize that
ever?
it's a rolling effect.
Yeah. Did you ever read the book? It was about. I don't know I can't remember who the author was or what the title of the book was about, but it was about these Indian people that lived in New York. I think in Staten Island in particular. It's a fiction book, and they started a cricket club, and they didn't have a place to play. They were playing in a parking lot, and then they were able to find a field, and they they planted it to bent grass, and it told the story of just creating this cricket. I don't even know what they call it. Is it a cricket field?
Um,
Is it a cricket
Wicket,
pitch? I don't know. I have no
yeah, it's
idea.
a, but I the part where the ball bounces is called the wicket, and the rest of it is called the outfield. Um,
Okay, so yeah, so
I mean,
they
it's a
created a
cricket
whole.
ground. It's often called a cricket ground, but that
Yeah,
might
it may
include
have
the
even been
stands.
Pakistanis. I don't know, but I just remember reading the book. It was an okay book, but I was fascinated by the author's knowledge of turf grass, which
Oh,
I don't think
cool.
he had any, but
Oh,
he basically researched it and did a pretty good job. And it was just a story about, I don't know, it was just interesting about these I don't even know if they were Pakistanis or Indians, but they were just Middle Eastern people living in Manhattan that decided that there needed to be a place for them to play cricket, and they developed this. They basically created a wicket and an outfield, and they pulled their. I don't know. It was a cool book. I can't remember. I probably read it
nice.
like 15 years ago.
Why don't you tweet out the title of that book
I'll
sometime?
try. I'll Google it. I'll do some Googling. But anyway, that's what it kind of. But I loved the mowing patterns and T fields. I love that one because it was just like, oh, okay, mowing pattern. First off, the title caught my eye, and I loved how they do it. It's pretty much the same way that we do it, right? It's just the way they cut the T fields that goes the stripes, and then at the end with the mowing, the the football pitch in Thailand, how they did their stripes. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's killer.
That's pretty nice. It's just, yeah, if you scalp the grass, it turns it a little bit yellow. So
Yeah.
that's not really the way I would do a professional pitch, but
Yeah. I just do
anyway.
no stripes if I couldn't stripe it. Just cut it. Anyway,
So I got
awesome. I
it,
loved it. I can't believe it made the list.
and the one that I can't made believe made the list is number 9, which is one of my favorite posts of the year. But number 8, I guess, yeah, it is not a huge surprise that people aren't interested in this. This is golf rounds and days open. I think it's fascinating about how things are done in different countries. And in Japan, in Fukuoka Prefecture in Japan, they all of the golf courses share their rounds per month, and they show the number of days open. They share how many rounds were played, whether the rounds were played by members or by guests. And so from that, you can look at how many rounds are played and how much time there is to do maintenance, basically. So I think that's really interesting. There's 190 golf facilities in Fukuoka Prefecture, which is in the northwestern corner of Kyushu, which is in southwestern Japan. And I showed that I used June 2022 data, and on average uh, the courses were doing 3,350 rounds per 18 holes. The busiest course did 6,544 rounds per 18
In
holes
it in June, in the month of June.
in the month of June, and the
Wow.
minimum was
Yeah.
815. So I mean that's interesting. It just kind of shows that golf is a serious sport there. I think that at the high end, that's actually a lot of rounds probably for anywhere. And then
Yeah. Absolutely.
it shows how much of the rounds are played by members. People have this perception that golf in Japan is so expensive and so exclusive that you can't get a tee time, but or you can't even buy a membership, and that's how it was in 1989, and 1990. But we are, more than 3 decades past the bubble, the economic bubble in Japan, when that actually was the case, and now it's possible to get tee times and go play golf if you want to. And so the average here was 27% member rounds. So you've got 73% of the rounds. 73% of the rounds played in Fukuoka in June were played by guests, or meaning you don't have a membership at the facility. You've just contacted them and made a tee time. And then the part that I find is most interesting is the business days, the days that they were open for play. And there are 30 days in the month of June. And on average, there were 29 days open for play. So the average golf course in Fukuoka, out of 190 golf facilities, uh, the average golf course was closed less than 1 day in the month, which means they're operating the golf courses as a business. They don't have maintenance Mondays, which is why, like in this part of the world where I do a lot of work and I see all of these successful golf courses just making money and not messing around with maintenance Mondays, I think it's very precious to see the United States Golf Association green section say, okay, time for maintenance Monday. Who's closing the course and doing work today? And it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's very precious to do that. I think when it's not very businesslike to say, okay, today we're just closed. You can't come play golf. We're just going to dedicate this day to maintenance. And I feel for the greenkeepers in this part of the world, they don't have that luxury because they have to do all the work on days when the course is slammed with golfers.
Yeah, it's funny, right? Maintenance Monday, because I'm a golfer, right? And sometimes my SDR will fall on a Monday, and it's kind of difficult to find a tee time or go play a course on a Monday because a lot of courses in this area are closed on Monday for maintenance. And what exactly is that accomplishing?
Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know. It's just it's. I agree, Mike. It's a fascinating subject. It's one that I quite don't understand why the USGA is pitching a maintenance Monday, and I think it's again it's golf's focus on the 1%, right? It's all the magazines, all the media. You go on golf Twitter, not even turf Twitter, right? GCM, GCI, Golfdom. It's really the focus is on these high end courses.
I'm
And if you're a
not
high
not
end,
not GCI though, not GCI. The if
okay,
you see a lot of the stuff that they do, they're looking at regular golf courses. Guy
okay,
Cipriano, who we mentioned earlier, he goes
yeah,
and plays 9-hole courses, municipal courses, and they actually are trying to focus on the reality of the industry. I think Golfdom does that pretty good
yeah, they
too.
do. But they still, but like, and listen, I wrote for Golfdom, right? It's,
Hmm.
it just, but that's what people, I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of our focus. Look at the fried egg, right? The fried egg, really interesting website, really interesting content that they're producing, but a lot of it is high end. Golfers Journal, the Broken Tea Society. They want this to be this inclusive club, but look at all the courses that they just put out on their tour for this summer, and they're all really high end courses that cost a lot of money to play. So my point is, the point I'm trying to make is the USGA is just still kind of maybe perhaps, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying that's what they are. They're sort of caught up in this 1% where if you're, I don't know, National Golf Links of America, if you're Pine Valley, if you're Marion, yeah, you could shut down on Monday to do maintenance. But at DuPont Country Club, we have outings. It's actually outing Monday, and
Hmm.
that's when they're selling their outings. Like that's when we have all our outings. But I don't think it's feasible for, say, the course right up down the road from me, Delcastle, or my boy Mark McGreevy. My boy Mark McGreevy is not doing a maintenance Monday because they would lose 200 rounds in June on a maintenance. So they're not doing that. So, like, why is the USGA pitching this? Why aren't they looking at the data from the ninth uh,
8th.
oh, sorry, my fault.
Well,
Eighth, my bad, my bad. The
yeah, it's
eighth, least read, blog on your website, right? Like,
well,
there's my rant about that.
yeah, I think that people, golf in Japan is different than golf in the United States, and for that reason, they don't nobody really needs to pay attention to it. I just find it interesting, and I'm sure, like in a place like Iceland that has a short golfing season, I don't they have maintenance Mondays because it just wouldn't make sense. Somebody from Iceland, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I know the old course the old course at St. Andrews is closed on Sundays, but that's also a municipal course or a community course, and
Yeah, and you can
they
go have
make
lunch out there,
yeah
right?
yeah you can go play in the bunkers and walk your
Bring
dog.
your dogs. Yeah,
So I I think for some places it makes sense, and I understand that these very high end clubs that want to present the absolute most immaculate conditions for the members are going to have maintenance Mondays. But I don't think Augusta National does maintenance Mondays. And you see Augusta National, they don't close before the Masters. Then the maintenance staff there do an excellent job to prepare the course very well on a daily basis, and then right up to the tournament, they continue working while there's play. Um, and to me, that's like the ideal. I often think of Augusta National. Of course, it's like the ultimate in exclusive and high end. But you look at
yeah.
some of the stuff that they do, and you can say, okay, it makes sense that the course is open for play every day, and it makes sense that they don't shut down for maintenance. But they shut down for maintenance in the summer when the course is closed, but during the time when it's open, and that to me like just kind of makes sense. So I don't know where the maintenance Mondays
I don't
why it
know
has to be
either.
a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really old school, right? I remember when I busted into the business in 1998 at New York Country Club as an entry level greenkeeper. The course was closed on Monday, and that was just sort of the thing that all the clubs they were just closed on Monday, so you could just do some things on the course, get some things done on the course that you wanted to get done. But I believe it's old school and antiquated, and I think that I say that the USGA really focuses on the 1% and places like the Fried Egg and the Golfers Journal. I say that, but I think as on the whole, the industry is getting a lot better for recognizing municipal golf. It was the National Links Trust, and the data that they're producing that 50% of golf is made up of municipal golf in America, and it's just maybe we
Yeah,
should be rethinking maintenance Monday.
you your one of your future guests, Benjamin Warren, who we mentioned earlier, he did I think it's called the Loop at Chaska, and
Yeah,
that's going to open. That's a municipal uh, course with a putting course also. That's right near. It's on the same lake. If you go around the lake that the 16th hole at Hazeltine National Golf Club is on, and if you would get in a canoe and go out from the 16th green and continue, I think, to the west a little bit, you would get to the loop. I think that's what it's called. That is going to be a very interesting facility. So maybe when you have Benny on, you can talk about that too.
well, little teaser, I'm going to have somebody on that was involved with that project in February. So, little teaser there for the Talking Greenkeeper podcast. Yeah,
Wow.
I'm gonna have a
Wow.
yeah. I didn't get Benny, but I got somebody that was involved with that project. So yeah, stoked on
Awesome.
that.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, we are coming to the end of this list. Now,
we are.
these are the ones that still quite a few people looked at. They weren't the absolute worst ones in terms of views. This is number 9. Is this the best extra hole in golf? Which
Love this one.
now
Love
now
this
we're
one.
now it's another posh golf course. This is Kawana, which a lot of people call the Pebble Beach of Japan, and it's the most famous course in the world with zoysia greens. And this
Oh,
was
there you
a
go.
C.H. Allison design that was built in the or it opened in the early 1930s.
Oh my gosh, what a
And this is
beautiful
this
golf hole.
yeah, but it's an extra hole. It's not played. It's not used. But I think that this is just a superb hole. So you you uh, you play the 11th, which is the long par five that goes through this crazy rolling fairway to this highly undulated green. You're playing down to the ocean, out to the lighthouse that's on the far um, eastern northeastern corner of the property, and there's a little lighthouse there, and then you turn and start heading back towards the hotel, and there's this little hole that's unused, and the actual tee is I mean this is a par 3. It's an extra hole, and it's right by the ocean. I'm showing pictures of this for those of
I
you
know.
watching
So
it.
yeah, so Micah, real quick, I'm looking at that picture that you just had up,
Hmm.
and I could smell it, right? Like I'm looking at that, and I could smell the salt water. Are you able to smell the salt water on that hole?
Depends which way the wind's blowing. You might just
Yeah.
smell pine trees if the wind's blowing from the peninsula, but if ocean, yeah, I mean, you definitely can smell it. You know where you are.
Yeah, I know. I was just gazing at that picture as you were talking, and I just got, even though I'm not smelling salt water in the basement of the Killer Brick Rancher, I got that feeling,
Yeah. So the
which is a great feeling.
I'm showing on the screen now a map of Kawana, which is a 36 hole facility. There's the Oshima course and then the Fuji course. And the 11th hole is at the far right of this image, and it's a long par five, just a tremendous fairway that just goes in these rolls, and you're going up and down and up and down, and then you finally reach the green. There's a lighthouse at the end, and then this little par 3 on what might be the most beautiful little point of land on the property, and it's just completely unused. It's an extra hole, but I love extra holes because if there's room for an extra hole, it allows maintenance to be so much easier. Instead of maintenance Mondays, how about just having an extra hole and having
Yeah.
so if you need to do some intensive work, you just close one of the holes and put the extra hole in play.
Well, there's a course in Delaware that has a hole like that. Rehoboth Beach Country Club has a hole exactly like that, right on the water. It's right on the bay.
Hmm.
And it's awful that I don't know the name of the bay. Is that awful? My geography is so terrible. It's probably the Delaware Bay. I would say the Delaware Bay. No, it's not the Delaware Bay because it's on the other side. Anyway, it's on one of the bays, right?
Hmm.
And it's the 19th hole, and it's right by the clubhouse. So if they're doing work on one of the holes on the golf course, they close that hole, and that 19th hole becomes the extra hole. And it's such a cool. It's really similar to the hole you just showed, and it's just a little 130-yard par three on the water where you can hit, depending on which way the wind is blowing, you can hit a wedge or you can hit a 4-iron.
That's
Awesome.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, and I think at Kawana, which is of course in the world top 100 by the golf magazine rankings, it often comes in at 45 or 50 or something like that. I don't know what it is most recently because I don't study those rankings too closely.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
but
don't either.
Kawana's Fuji course is just an
It
amazing
looks
amazing piece of property.
Have you played that hole?
No, I haven't.
No.
I've been there many times. I've never played that golf course.
Gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
But yeah, one of these days. The Oshima course looks really cool. It's a little bit older, has more like blind drives and even more extreme terrain and more short par fours. So I could probably make more birdies there. So
There you
that
go.
that's
Dance the day away.
dance the day away. How we plan out the angles for the photographs before we even play the hole.
Absolutely.
It'd
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
good. Um, and now we're on to number 10, which is uh, which got so this one is also sort of like a housekeeping one. This got even more views than that amazing one about the best extra hole in golf. Which yeah, I mean back to that best extra hole in golf. You mentioned the one at Rehoboth Beach in Delaware, and
Yeah.
there must be some others that are better than the one at Kiwana, but somebody
I mean, that sounds like a great
somebody can let us
article.
know.
Yeah. Okay, so Seth Jones, hey, best extra holes in golf. Let's do this, son.
Yeah, or yeah, Fire Pit Collective.
Fire Pit
Yeah,
Collective. There you go. Yeah.
there you go.
Golfer's Journal.
Yeah.
I don't know
So
if that's
so
hipster enough.
I don't know. I can't figure it out because uh the stuff that I think is a little bit boring is like here's how to decide how much fertilizer to put. I that's my job. I guess to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that exciting because I think it's so simple. And I've explained it so many times and I make cheat sheets about that and blog posts and articles and book chapters and that kind of thing about here's how to decide how much fertilizer to apply. So when I do a blog post about that, it's sort of like it's answering a question or something, or taking a new angle to that topic based on a conversation I've had or something. But I don't find it that interesting. The stuff about travel or about golf in a different country or turf grass, soccer, football pitches, soccer fields in Bangkok that are mowed at two different heights to do a striping effect. That's what I think is most interesting. But
Me too.
it's interesting that the things that I find most interesting like that are not what people are going to click on when they want to read my website. People actually care about the I mean, or they think of me. They come to the Asian Turfgrass Center website wanting to find out how much sand to apply, how much fertilizer to apply, and I guess they leave it to Golfers Journal and Fire Pit Collective to write about things like the best extra holes in golf. But I don't get much crossover either. I always hope sometimes when I do one of these posts, the best extra hole in golf, that it will attract a little bit of a wider audience and somebody will be like, oh, I've always wanted to go to Kiwana. That's amazing to know that there's that extra hole there. I see you've marked it on the map. You've shown me a couple pictures of it in different seasons. So when they do get a chance to go to Kiwana, they will know that it's there. But there's none
Yeah.
of that. It just sort of like totally falls flat.
I understand that because I'll have guests like Laz Versailles. I'll have
Hmm.
guests like Lou Stagner, right?
Hmm.
That I find to be fascinating people. Scott Fawcett, Casey Bannon. Speaking of Golfers Journal, I'll have Greg Montefiore on, who runs the Golf Threads blog. I'll
Hmm.
have Dan Hirschberg, who is an entrepreneur that runs Workhorse Brewery, and I find those stories to be fascinating. Right? I find these people to be very interesting, and I really want to talk to them, but they're no offense, gentlemen, but you're the least listened to podcast amongst my listens because people don't really know who they are in the turf Twitter world. But I just want to talk to those people because I like their story.
Yeah,
It's sort of like, yeah,
I think the turf Twitter audience or the turf podcast listening audience is awesome because it turns
me
out that
too.
it
Yeah,
turns out that there are people that care about turf grass to an extreme degree to the point that they don't want to waste their time. I mean, from their perspective, they've got a limited amount of time, and so they don't want to read about me writing about like the type of grass that grows in a castle in Japan. Like if I would do that post, that's not relevant to what their interests are in terms of what they need to know to do their job. And the same thing with golf threads or stats or diversity in golf players or something.
yeah,
They
totally.
you know it's interesting if you have the luxury of having enough time, but if you don't have enough time, and that so it is interesting that the stuff that gets the most clicks is practical. And you know I was looking recently. I don't know if it'll be this way forever, but my most listened to podcast of all time, and I've been on this show on the ATC Double Cut. It's the one I did with Andrew McDaniel, and it's how to get complete control of tournament green fertilizer by using urea. And that's one that got that's the one that has the most listens. And
That was a great one.
it's a great one, and we just kind of walked through that, and it's practical. And surprisingly, some people don't know that you can do that. And Frank Rossi and I talked later when he was on my show, and he said he was surprised that people didn't know that you could do that. But it's
I
like
didn't know, Micah.
if you go talk to real people that are doing the job, a lot of them know that you can do that. But there's a lot of people that don't realize that that's possible, and they, even if they do know that it's possible, they wouldn't know how to do it. So when Andrew and I talked about how to do it, and there's a couple of videos about that also in that uh, in that 2 week Turfgrass tour to Japan list of 18 videos where we talked about that some more. Um, I'm trying to explain to people how to do it. One of your
You know
upcoming
what?
guests
Yeah.
has a blog post about it now, about how he saved so much money simply by making his own fertilizer that's in the ratio that he needs to apply for his grass based on using MLSN. And so the cost saving is not so much from using MLSN, but it's from the type of fertilizer that he uses
Yes.
to effectively do MLSN. And that those are the kind of things that people are interested in,
Yeah,
because
which is
it's
awesome.
novel. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really cool. Micah, I didn't know. I did not know. I did not know until I got to New York Country Club that you could get a brown bag of urea and melt it down in the basket of a sprayer. I
Hmm.
didn't know you could do.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Mark.
fascinating? And I had been a superintendent. I had been an assistant. I got my first assistant job in 2002, and I was an assistant from 2002. I got my first superintendent's job in 2006. Uh, really first superintendent's job in 2007, and it took me over. It was until 2016 that I had no idea.
Well,
No idea.
let's let's hope that we keep informing people about what is
Yes,
possible so that they can make the right choice. And I'm
absolutely.
I really I let people choose what fertilizer they want to apply, but it's a pity if people don't realize all the choices that they have, right?
It's so versatile.
If people don't realize that you could use ammonium sulfate, you don't have to buy ammonium sulfate that somebody else mixed up for you. You can just use ammonium sulfate, or you can use urea, or you can use potassium nitrate, or you can use something that's mixed up, and you can look at what your prices are, and you can look at what product you want to apply at this time at what rate, and decide what works best for you. And I I'd like people to be aware of that, and apparently not everybody knows. And I think I told my story with Andrew McDaniel in that episode, or I've told you, where I found out. I learned from Ed Etchells because I'd worked at Desert Mountain and Waverly Country Club and Old Waverly and Augusta National. I'd worked at all those places, and we'd always used, uh, on the putting greens at least, we were generally using products that were pre-mixed. I guess at Waverly we would have used a bit of ammonium sulfate, but otherwise we're using some products that have brand names on it, and it's already pre-mixed. And I was using that in China also when I had my first superintendent's job, and we had some import issues and some budget issues. And Ed Etchell says, "Well, you can just buy urea and put that out, and then it's like, oh yeah, right, yeah, I guess I could." And and potassium nitrate and so on. And because back then
Yeah.
I thought I needed a lot of potassium, so
Right.
I was pretty
Right.
keen to be putting out products that had potassium in it. And so I started using those, and it's like, it was just amazing how much control I had over the turf. And I
Yeah.
just loved knowing that I decided the rate, that the result was incredible. And I was just kind of laughing about how much money I was saving too. Like it for me at that time, it was more about like, wow, I can buy so much fertilizer for this price, right? Because I could make the grass
Yeah.
greener, we were doing a grow in, and so I needed to put a lot of fertilizer, and I was just thrilled at the efficiency of that.
Yeah, and let's bring up Guy Cipriano today. Again, he had a tweet about assistants making $45,000 a year, right? And the only way that's really feasible if it's in a regional area where uh, that's what they're going to make. Why would anybody ever, if you graduate from school? So, I guess what maybe part of that tweet is why would any club want to pay 45,000? Well, maybe that club is using a designer spoon feeding program. Maybe that club doesn't realize that you can just buy a brown bag of urea to melt down. So I think all this chatter that's been on Twitter lately about the labor issues and not being able to find people to pay, maybe we need to stop supporting the companies and these high-tech designer spoon feeding programs and maybe start investing in people and just going back to fertilizing our greens and our fairways very simply by melting down brown bags of urea, which is very easy to do. And Micah, you've inspired me. This when I start spraying this spring and I start melting down, I'm gonna make a video. I'm just gonna grab somebody. I'm gonna say, "Here, video me," and I'm just gonna show it. I'm gonna blast it out on Instagram and I'll blast it out on Twitter and there.
And that could be an interesting segment for your show. Um, what are you doing now? Your Shooter McGavin six
Oh
shooter
yeah,
quick questions. You can just be
yeah,
like,
Shooter McGavin six
yeah,
shooter, the
so you
Shooter
can,
McGavin six question shootout. There it
yeah,
is.
so you can like ask about MLSN. You can ask about if people are, did you know that you can use urea on putting greens? You can,
Yeah,
but it is interesting because people that do it generally, um, for the highest they might use a different fertilizer in the rough because you have to for efficiency. You can't.
yeah. I
It's
mean, it'd
very
be hard to
difficult to
go
run
out
a
and spoon
sprayer.
feed rough.
Yeah, it's hard to spoon feed rough, and it's a waste of labor to do so. But the modern way of managing putting greens, a lot of people are using this fertilizer on greens, but other people are spending $30,000, $40,000 on fertilizer for greens, and you're like, that's an interesting topic in the industry.
Hey, if anybody wants to go check out how much money I saved in Newark by switching to MLSN brown bag and the differences between a spoon feeding program as opposed to just using ag grade urea, go visit my blog, The Walking Greenkeeper, and they can read the how what was it? The keyboard is mightier than the fist. A
Yeah,
classic.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a classic. So that's good. You've got a few excellent posts about MLSN, um, and
Yeah.
and I do recommend. I have recommended in the past that people read
You
those.
have.
Maybe when we go back to some of the old lists, because I've done this list for a number of years, and we've talked about two of them so far, I think, but done we haven't done all the posts. Maybe I don't know. Maybe some of those are on the old list. I'll have to go check it. We could.
Wow,
That
wow,
would be
yeah,
very
yeah.
meta.
When you were plugging mine, number
Yeah.
one,
so so that brings us to the last one on
number
this
10.
list,
Yeah,
number 10, which is pace turf updates in 2022. I realized, I think this was also in early December. Yeah, it's in the first 49 weeks of the year. There were 125 updates on the Pace Turf website, and that is for the subscribers. So they have access to all of those updates, and it usually two or three per week. And those are timely bits of information that can be useful at that time of the year. And I put a link to all 125 of them just to show the idea would be that people could scroll through that and see the range of topics that are covered. And I think that I'll put in another plug for Pace Turf and say for $275, you can get these type of updates and access to the library, the full library of information on the PaceTurf site, plus the site-specific climate appraisal and the weather data. It is a heck of a value, and you also would be. I'm now the owner of PaceTurf, so you're also supporting the work that I do. So, anyway, I was glad that that one was number 10 and not number one on this list. But so that means that quite a few people actually did click through to this one compared to the very self-absorbed ones where I'm just talking about whether more people watch or listen to this show.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I did not see the Pace Turf updates in 2000. I did not read that one. But yeah, I'm gonna go check that out because it seems informative. I'm gonna have to check that out for sure, Micah.
Yeah, I think if you would be a PaceTurf subscriber, you would be impressed at the
Absolutely.
information that's there, because the idea with PaceTurf is just to provide information, right? So the user doesn't really have to do so much, and you just get this stream of information, whether it's the weather data or the updates, that's just useful for you, and you just get it, right? And then if you need something, you can go to the website and you can search for it, because there's so much archive material that is useful there.
Well, I'm definitely gonna check it out, Micah. You convinced me to go hit that one up for sure.
Thank you. Well,
You're welcome.
I'm glad. I'm glad you can do that. So what else? Is there anything you want to plug before we end this very long?
That sweet stash you're working on, that needs some plugins.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're listening to this, you miss out on seeing my current look. I went to a proper barber, and yeah,
You look great. I in the Instagram stories, you got the mullet going, right?
yeah. When I'm wearing the headphones, I wear monitoring headphones when I'm recording this show,
Yeah.
so that I can hear as clearly as possible, and that
Right.
blocks what's going on in the back, which is
Yeah.
pretty impressive right now.
Well, because it's all business right now, right, Mike? It's all business right now. We're not really partying, right?
Hmm. Well, we talked about
Yes.
that when I was a guest on your show in the last episode of 2022 before
22.
Christmas,
Yeah.
and we did talk a lot about my style and
Yes.
that type of thing.
I
So,
know. It was awesome. I have one question. One question before we go for you.
okay,
The Twitter list, and I always forget to ask you. I forgot to ask you. So the Twitter rankings, right? In Turf
yes.
Twitter. Why did you start doing that? There was a reason you started doing it, right? And I can't remember. And it wasn't just to like see who was the most popular. It was something. I think you were looking for some data, right?
It was curiosity. It was
Okay.
curiosity because um, I I realized that when I was sending out tweets, they were getting a relatively high amount of response. And by response, I would mean either people clicking the like button, or people retweeting it, or people replying, or people clicking through to some of the links that I share. Because generally, I'm not just having conversations on Twitter, I'm posting links to information. And so I was interested in that, and just thinking, okay, for how does this compare to what John Kaminsky's doing, for example, who has a lot more followers than I do? Or how does what I'm doing compare to Pace Turf, or compare to Doug Soldat, or compare to Bill Kreuzer, or other turfgrass scientists? And so it was just kind of that curiosity, realizing I'd read a blog post by somebody who's not in the turfgrass industry, by a computer security expert, I think. And in reading that blog post, he'd introduced me to the knowledge, or I learned from him that these data were available, that there was software that you could use to obtain this data from Twitter about how the how the interactions were on tweets. And so I realized, wow, if these data are available, wouldn't it be cool to see how things are in the turfgrass industry. So it was curiosity. Once I realized that it was possible to do that, I started writing the code that was based on what this guy had done, to start getting the tweets and then analyzing them. And in fact, I'm going to try to record a very uh, not it won't be so technical. It will be dry, just kind of going through the code that I use to just explain here's what that ranking really entails. Here's what it is. So it's just going to be like, okay, here's my computer screen. I won't even show my face. It's just my voice and the computer screen, and I'll just say, okay, this line does this line does this, and here's how that ranking is done, because people sometimes have questions about why is Travis Hogan not there? Why is Paul Burgess not there? Obviously Paul Burgess is the most influential. He's verified. Every tweet gets 20,000 likes. Why, things like that. And I'm like, well, he didn't tweet last year. So if he didn't tweet last year, that's not meeting my definition
Yeah.
of active accounts or something. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, but yeah, there is a lot of interest in that ranking, and people find it fun. You did pretty good. I think you were in the top 250, maybe top
Yeah,
200.
yeah. No, I did well. I did fine. I'm happy with where I am. It's cool. No, it's funny. I look forward to it coming out every year, and the banter that it inspires, and it's just good. And I just knew that there was a reason beside just ranking that why you did it, and I just couldn't remember why. So that's
Yeah,
what
it's
I wanted to ask you.
yeah. Well, that's a very very good question, and yeah, I mean, I think it was once I discovered that all the data were available, then it's like, yeah, it just seems interesting to check it out.
No, that's cool. Everybody loves a list, Micah. Top 10 most on, everybody loves a list, man.
That's good.
Oh, real quick, just
Yeah.
Talking Greenkeeper. That's all I want to plug. Just check out the Talking Greenkeeper.
Yeah, I will put a link to your Talking Greenkeeper podcast,
Thank you.
and
Thank you, Micah.
in the show notes. I think you are well known for that, and I suppose most people have listened to that, and I encourage you to. You can get it on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, and yeah. And what should I say about my show, Joe? I'm thrilled. I got a new review on Apple Podcasts from Bentgrass Wizard. So thank you, Bentgrass Wizard, for that.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm gonna have to rate your review. Why? That's yeah. I always
yeah,
ask people to review mine. I'm gonna have to, dude. Okay, I'm on
I
it.
I gave you 5 stars on Spotify, and I
Thank you.
can't leave you a review on Apple Podcasts because I don't listen to it there, and
I understand.
I'm not tech savvy enough to know how to leave a review on software that I don't
I
have.
totally got it.
But
I will
yeah,
write your. Yeah. Don't worry. One's
please, yeah.
coming.
That's
I'll
awesome.
look it
Thank
up.
you.
I'll look
Yeah,
it
and
up.
so if anybody wants to be like Joe, please, yeah, feel free to leave me glowing reviews, because I think what that does is it helps other like-minded people discover the show and realize that it might be worth listening to. And I've had a lot of people, like you said earlier on this very long discussion that we've had, you said that you've learned a lot in the year or so of listening
Oh
to
my
this.
gosh, so much good information on your podcast, Mike. It's been such a blessing to our industry, and I think it's really helped because and thanks Andrew McDaniel for really kind of forcing. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for here. I always space on words.
Bringing Micah into
Inspiring
the
you
modern
to do
era.
this.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Andrew said people don't read anymore. They don't read blogs, and they're busy and they want to listen or they want to watch. And I was like,
yeah.
well,
Thank you,
I don't.
Andrew.
I'm like, I like to read. You can see all the
Me
books
too.
behind me. I
Yeah,
read,
yeah.
and 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 so it's just natural to me that when I think of sharing turfgrass information, I want to write about it, assuming that people will read. And then it turns out there are a lot of people out there who find it convenient to be able to listen to it, or they find it convenient and fun to watch sometimes. And so
It's been awesome.
So Andrew suggested that, and I ran it by a few people. I remember talking about this with you
Yeah.
before I did it, and then it was like, yeah, let me give it a try, and it's been fun.
Awesome. Well, keep it up, man. You're doing a great job. You're really easy and fun to listen to, and the information is very thought provoking and interesting, and I love it. So thank you, Micah.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, for going through that list for with me, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that every time we talk about the stuff that bombs, it's fun to have you on to talk
Love
about
being
that.
off for the bombs.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. You want to do the double cut gang symbol
Oh yeah,
again?
what is this?
All right. All right.
There we go.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for
You're
listening.
welcome, Micah. Yeah.
I'll sign off now. Thanks, everyone, for ATC from Yantakao, Thailand. I am Micah Woods.